Oh my God. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today. I am excited to introduce my friend, soul sister, Deborah Knight. Deb is a spiritual alchemist and coach whose fundamental belief is that everything in your life is a product of your thoughts and beliefs, and that you have the power to change your reality with ease, speed, and grace. I can't wait to talk about this. You may not, you just may not know that you have been, you just may not have been taught how to tap into the magnificent power of the universe and how to use it properly. And Deb's going to tell us how to do that today. She was blessed to have a mystical experience during a dark night of the soul that allowed her to see and feel what that power was. And she has never looked back. She believes we are all here to ascend to a higher level of humanity, and we're here to help each other along the way with love through compassion, collaboration, and community. She will take all the negative BS, belief systems, thoughts, and patterns, and give you the how-to shift them, allowing you to have a higher state of consciousness and energetic flow where things work out for the highest good of all. Welcome, Deb. I'm so excited you're here.
Hi,
So
how are
we've got
you?
a lot to dig into today. I'm excited for this conversation. So tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are today, because I'll just assume that you didn't just start off like this and just trust that everything is happening for you, right?
Sure. I was the one who was, kind of always curled up on the ball crying because my needs were never met, or so I thought.
Mm, yeah.
I was never loved enough, never felt appreciated, always attracted the wrong guy who was abusive in some way, shape, or form. And then my last big dark night of soul, and I call him my Michael because Archangel Michael actually came in at that time too. And it was a time where I had to really look at myself. I was the one common denominator in every experience I've ever had. And it really forced me to look inside. And it was, and literally, I see so many women today who don't feel good about themselves on the internal level, and I believe that there's just a little tiny seed within each and every one of us. And if that seed is not fulfilled, because on the outside, nobody would have ever known. Nobody would have ever known because I was happy, I was joyful, I loved my life, I had fun, but deep down inside, there was this hurt little, piece of me.
Yeah.
And that's what was attracting all the things that were no good for me.
So just to back up a little bit, share with people what a dark night of the soul is. Not everyone's going to resonate or understand that, right? So
Sure.
without share as much or as little as you want, but just share what that
Yeah.
actually even
Yeah.
means.
So I've had bad moments, bad times, bad months, bad years where it was, things just didn't flow right, right? And it was always a challenge. The dark night of the soul was a 9-month period for me where I literally was in this darkness and I was in the depths of the hell within me. And it was caused by a breakup with somebody that I thought I would be with forever. And it's so funny because even our first date, I knew that it wasn't the right guy for me.
Mm,
But he made me laugh. And to this day, we've come to the other side, and I love him dearly. I
yeah.
do love him. I love him as a person, and he was the catalyst. So now I can look back. But that dark night of the soul, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even go to a store because the music playing in the store, he was a musician, and the music in the store reminded me of him. And all of it just brought me to the depths within myself.
Yeah.
And, it was like I was having heart attack symptoms. My body, like there was one day in particular where I thought I was going to die because of my broken heart. So the pain was, like
Sounds
never nothing.
scary.
It was really
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
And I was raising 2 kids, and thank God I had my kids because they were my saving grace, because I had to
Yeah.
get up every morning, for them and put on this face of everything's okay. But as soon as they were gone, and it was really hard to do anything, it was just hard to concentrate. It was all my thoughts went to the deeper aspects of me, not particularly the breakup, but that
Mm.
breakup was the catalyst of everything within me and everything, the soul journey, right? So yeah, it was, I mean, I lost weight. I
What
couldn't
shifted
focus.
for you? What allowed you to actually let me back up. Were you already coaching? Were you already into healing work and spiritual work?
Um, yes, had dabbled in just,
Okay,
I've been in the spiritual world my whole life, but it
sure.
was over there, right?
Right,
It was like we all have gifts. I had mine as a child, but they were, you had to squash them. You can't have those.
right.
Um, and it wasn't like anybody said that to me, but it was uncomfortable for me to be in
Sure.
this world, because I can see things. Not things, but I feel people. I feel people's soul.
Right.
But it was one moment of surrender. It got so bad where I'll just tell you, I dropped my kids off at school, and as soon as I dropped them off, bye girls, have a great day, here I am. Like
Yeah,
a lot of women people, I should say, put on a great front.
sure.
And then as soon as that door shut and I was on my way, I was hysterical. And I didn't even know why. That was the whole thing, is
Mm.
I didn't know what was happening inside me and inside my body. The trembling, the it was just a feeling of overwhelm in the depths of, I don't want to be here anymore, but I do want to be here. I don't want to go through this anymore. And I got to my house, and it took everything I had to get home because the crying was so bad. But I walked inside my door, and I literally fell to my knees. And the wailing that was coming out of me really scared me. It
Mm.
scared me because it was something I'd never heard before. Like the sounds coming out of my body were like from the depths.
Yeah.
I knew in that moment that it felt like it was going to die from and I was just like, I can't let my kids find me here. I can't let my kids find me here. And so,
Goosebumps when you say that, right? That's my tell.
that
Like,
was that
ooh,
I tell
yeah.
you, they were my driving force
Right.
because, God, I love my kids so much. And I had raised them alone for most of their life.
Yeah.
My husband and their father separated when they were 8 months and 2.5 years. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was We Three Kings, always We Three Kings.
Right.
That was my name, by the way. And that's a whole story in itself, why I changed it to Night.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think you did.
Oh.
But it was surrender. So
Yeah.
I got to my room and I sat on the edge of the bed and I literally yelled out, "Somebody please help me." And
Mm.
in that moment, Francine, it was in a millisecond where I felt this calmness and a love that I had never felt before in my life. It was pure nirvana. And like I think about it now, and my whole body just lights up. And in that moment, I was just like, oh, and I did fall into a deep sleep. But when I woke up, I was like, I need to find out what that energy was.
Oh.
Because I didn't have a huge religious, I had
Yeah.
walked away from religion quite a while ago. I believed in an outside force. And now it's like all coming together now. It's been, what, 2 decades since then.
Right.
And it's all coming together with all of it. But it was surrender,
Mm.
surrender.
Beautiful. What would you suggest, advise, coach people that are listening, because there's a lot of people probably going through what you're going through, right? I mean, I know I've heard it from people that I've surrounded myself with, that things are hard, right? What are some things that you would say, how do you know if it's a dark night of the soul or if it's just you're having a shitty day? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Right. And then what would you suggest on how to actually, like, surrender sounds, sure, just surrender, right? Like,
You have
easier
to
said
get
than
there.
done, right?
It's a personal experience. So
Yeah,
I can't tell you what to do
sure.
because for each and every one of you, it might be a little different.
Yeah,
And having a hard day, I think we can all know when a hard day, we're just having a tough time or a tough month or things are bad. It's an internal intuition. It's an internal feeling. It's a soul level gut feeling that I got to change something.
mm,
This is, you know what I mean? It's like the bottom, like you just hit rock bottom. And a lot of people, and for some people, it may not be as bad, right? for some people, the dark night of the soul may not be as bad, but the dark night of the soul to me is where you recognize the depths of your soul. And it was the deeper, the darker aspects of me that I needed to shine light on, see, and then heal, right?
Yeah.
And shift in some way. And it all was just self-love and self-respect.
Yeah.
All of
I
it,
love
all
that.
of it.
I remember when Deb and I met through healing school that we were both in, and my first year, one of the teachers said to me, "What do you do for fun?" And I couldn't answer him. And I came home and I just shut down, right? And my top values is fun, right? That's why we're here for
Right,
effing Fridays, right?
right, right.
But it was probably a solid month of being like, just I was in that dark place, and my husband looked at me one day and he was like, "What's happening? Like, are we getting divorced?" Because I couldn't even talk to him because I didn't even have the language.
Right, right,
And
right.
he was like, I don't like, what's happening? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
think.
just, because I had spent so much of my life just being the adult, taking care of everyone and everything, that I forgot to have fun. And
Right.
then when I was asked what do you do for fun? I didn't have an answer. And like at my core, it's one of my top values,
Right,
but I
right,
had just forgotten about it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So you touched on a point where, and now it's going to go right out of my head, um, where you didn't have the words.
Yeah.
There are no words in the
Yeah.
English language to actually put into words what this feels like.
Yeah.
No, but it's when the darker, I don't even like to call it darker, when the parts of us that we're not proud of, or the parts of us that we know need more love. It's those parts of us when they come hitting us right in the face, that's the
Well, and right, like I love that, right? It isn't, we have to love all parts of us, right? Like we can
yeah,
be love and joy and we can be an asshole. But
yeah.
when we reject one, that's what keeps coming back, right? Like
And
it
I'm going to
can't,
say, wait a second, back up, because when you really love yourself, when you really love and respect yourself, you don't have you to have judgment, hate, and be an asshole is really challenging. They
yeah.
don't exist in the same plane. So it's
Okay.
like it shifts a little. So I know now that when I'm judging someone, ooh, does it not feel good in the body?
Yeah.
And I pull it because that's the ego, that's the human, right? The
Right.
humanness of us. But the soul part of me, which is the best part of me, it recognizes I'm judging, and then I pull it back. And Francine's been really good with me too, because we'll coach each other sometimes, and sometimes, the human part of us really does get in the way, depending on how deep you are and what's
Right.
going on in your life. And it's a process. You're never fully there.
Right. And sometimes it's fun to be a human and be messy, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You
So I
know,
wanted to, this has been coming up in a lot of other areas that conversations I've been having about, your life being this product of your thoughts and beliefs, right?
Mhm.
And, you
Mhm.
know, people are like, so are you saying it's my fault that this happened? Right. So I'd love to dig into this
Yeah.
a little bit more, because I recently have had a conversation with a group of women about this too. And, I said to somebody, like, I truly believe like everything has a purpose, right? Like I remember years ago, one of my classmates in this healing school threw a napkin on the floor and said, "This has a purpose," right? Is it that the person stops to bend it over and it stops them from getting into an accident? But this conversation, and I shared that. And then somebody was like, "So do you mean there's no free will?" Right? So like it can get really big,
Yeah.
right? So
It's
I
hard
would
to
love to
understand.
hear what's
Yeah.
that?
It's hard to understand sometimes. And you know
Yeah.
what? As humans, we probably never will. So
Right.
I never claim that I know it all. No way. Every day I'm learning something new. But I do believe that, we make a decision before we come here. And these are the experiences I need to have so that my soul can grow and so that I can benefit humanity. I don't believe that it's always just my soul can grow so I can, not come back again. I think it's to serve. We're all here to serve one another. And my my background, abuse, husband, sexual abuse from childhood, there are all these things. And even, my path with Michael, I can look back with gratitude and thank God I had that. Thank God I had the sexual abuse experience, because guess what? I have helped so many women on that journey get to the other side. So did I attract that as a child? No, but it was part of my journey. So I truly believe, and I've been able to help that person through forgiveness, so I have no resentment. There's no emotion that arises in me anymore when I talk about that experience. And the same with Michael. Now it's more laughter,
Mm,
it's just like, even though it was one of the hardest times in my life, and it was Michael. He was the catalyst to shift me into who I am, so that I could serve humanity on a bigger level.
right.
So that's what I don't know. Does
And
that
I
make
think that's a hard concept for people. Like, who would ever agree to be sexually abused or abused in any form,
right?
right? Or to get sick, to
Because the
get,
human can't, the human doesn't. The human
right.
mind and the ego will not and does not. But
Yeah.
this is on a soul level of it's a different level of understanding, and it's just like, the soul as soul, we don't have like, I'm not Deborah up there,
Right.
I'm just
Right.
love.
I love that.
Right. So it's just different. And it's understanding the difference between that soul energy and the human form.
And
Um,
again, easier said than done, right? So how do you recognize in you, right? So speak for yourself, and it just might give others some like little tidbits. How do you recognize when you're in your soul Deb versus your human Deb?
oh, because you feel it. You
Right?
feel it here. You feel love. For me, it's nirvana. Can
Yeah,
I get there every day? Absolutely not.
right.
No, but when I'm doing my practices, and like meditation and just being quiet. And sometimes my meditation is just sitting out by a tree or going for a
Mm.
walk by the creek or crook, whatever you want to call
I was like, what's a crook?
it. I've heard it that way, that I'm out west. But that's, and a lot of people think meditation, I have to sit in quiet. You learn. It's like the space between the thoughts grows. And that's when I've had some of my most profound, connections to source energy, is sitting
Yeah.
quiet.
What are I have this conversation with almost every woman I encounter of I can't quiet my brain,
Mm,
right? I often say if your brain is quiet, you're probably dead, right? Like the point of meditation isn't to always just be in that la la space. It's also retraining the thoughts, right? Like
it's there is
practicing.
there is a place of no thought. Um, I feel like for me, it was easier to go into meditation because as a child, that's how I escaped.
Mm,
So that was my escape, to escape the body and go up.
yeah.
So, and I think that that's part of my journey, right? Is to help other women get there without the trauma. And so I can get to a place of no thought. It's outside the body. And typically I will sometimes I'll need music to get me there. Sometimes it'll be spontaneous. Sometimes I would say even just going out and lying on the grass
Mm,
and just breathing and just listening. When you're listening to Mother Nature, you're just listening to the birds. Is that a thought? Are you having a thought about it, or are you just listening? There is so, and when you focus, I know when I focus on my breath going into my nose, like literally, there's nothing going on in my head,
right.
or if I'm trying to think, if you're doing something, if you're drawing, right? Um, you can't, I'll
Well, it
think about
goes back to like you can't multitask, right? I mean, like everyone thinks that they can do
things that
multiple things. Sometimes I know myself, sometimes it's hard for me to quiet my brain. So I've counted. Because if I'm counting,
that's
I
what it,
can't
that's
have
what that's
thoughts.
what that's what it is. I was like, wait a minute, there is something that I do. It's when you're counting, you can't think of
You
anything.
can't think of anything else. I
So
used to love,
literally,
yeah. Like
Francine, it's
we
like,
can't do two things at once.
right. But the brain, right? So it's just like, okay, count how many slats are on the window.
Right.
Just start counting the panes. when you're in that space
Yeah.
of your thoughts. So
Counting the
it's like,
breath or yeah.
well, your thoughts come in here, right? But to raise your vibration, it's like there's an emotion that comes from every thought. But when you start to control the emotional aspect or the emotions behind the thought, then literally, so you have seconds between that space. And if you want to raise your vibration and not go into the lower vibrations of shame, guilt, fear, anger, then as soon as you have the thought and you feel yourself going there, right? You start counting the pains or anything
Mm.
else, counting the pencils on the desk, counting, how many books you have. It immediately stops that emotion from coming up. And then what I like to do is have everybody train into a happier space, like have that thought right there. So what is something that where is your nirvana? One of the happiest times for me was when I was traveling in Egypt and India. And I literally remember coming onto the bus every day and saying, oh my God, I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm so happy. And when I think of that, that's all I have to do. It immediately
It brings
raises
you
my,
there. Yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask you this, because I would also challenge, right? I would want you to feel all the emotions. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of people talk about spiritual bypass. That
Yeah,
isn't what you're
that's not good.
talking about.
No,
So explain that, because there is still the guilt and shame and anger and
oh
feel
yeah.
those,
Oh yeah.
right? So you're
Yeah.
not saying don't feel those emotions and just because that's what you were doing. You weren't feeling those. You were like happy, happy mom, right? And that didn't work, right? So
Right.
help
No,
distinguish what
yeah,
you're
sure. So
sharing.
it's really important to when you're like I definitely went into all those emotions. I took the time for myself. I journaled. I did a lot of self reflection, a lot. And I allowed those emotions to come out. I allowed myself to be a puddle on the floor. I allowed that. But what I didn't do was allow it to go on. I did not allow, and it was probably because of the kids,
Was it from a place of choice or judgment?
choice.
Okay. Because
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, right. Like, I don't have time. Like, there's a lot of, I don't have time for this. Like, I hear, moms all the time, like, they don't have time to take care of themselves, right? Like,
Oh, everybody
I,
has time.
I,
Sorry.
you're
Every,
right. It's the story, right? Like,
yeah,
everybody comes from, I often will say, you've got to put the oxygen mask on you first before you put it on your
100%.
kids, right? And I
100%.
actually had somebody say to me once, that actually pisses me off. Like the thought of taking care of herself first before her
Oh,
children
oh, that makes me sad.
angered her. And I was like, but you have to in order to, right?
Yeah, but that makes me sad. That makes me know where
Yes.
she's at. And that's just,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But yeah, spiritual bypassing, no, we don't do that.
Okay, good,
I'm
good.
talking about those because we have what, 10,000 thoughts or more a day. It's like we'll have a negative thought come in and it's just like it can spiral you down. Like even, oh, my hair looks like shit today. It can
Right.
spiral you down into, oh, this doesn't work right. This doesn't work right. Nothing works in my favor. Those are the thoughts I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? That's a
I,
negative thought that can spiral you and get you into that. And then it sucks you in.
Well, I actually have noticed myself. So I had, and Deb knows this, but I had hip replacement surgery last October, and I just booked my knee replacement for this October, right? So my body aches
It's a
and makes a
yearly
lot of
thing.
noise. And I recognize that every time I get up or get down, I make a sound, whether it hurts or not.
Oh, that's so
And I
funny.
was like, oh my God, like it's so just natural to be like, right? And I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
Like you're
Well, those
actually
are the
not even in pain.
right. But those are the thoughts. So I talk a lot about the neural pathways. So it's like you have a neural pathway in your mind, and this is your behavior, this is the pattern, this is where you're going. It automatically creates an emotion. And when you want to start to shift that, you have to start taking a new behavior. So, and it's really funny, Francine, this is really funny because what happens is, when you go to the top of anybody who knows snow, you go to the top of the mountain, right? Or the top of the hill, it takes a while to get that path nice and smooth, right? To wear
Sure.
down that. It's the same with the pathways in the
Mm.
brain. So you want to get to the top of the hill, and your sleigh almost always goes toward the one that's already there. And then so you're doing the same in your brain,
That's a
creating a new,
beautiful analogy.
thank you,
Yeah.
creating a new neural pathway. But
Yeah.
here's the thing is that life happens, life gets in the way, they stop, and then they think, oh, I did all this work And now I have to start all over again. No, you don't. Because you could be just, what is that book, great book, 3 feet from gold. You're just another couple of, I mean, maybe even a couple inches, right? To couple more. Here's the magic that happens is that one day you wake up and it's like that behavior doesn't exist. That old behavior doesn't exist. That old thought doesn't exist. It's like you don't even realize when it happens, but one day you'll wake up and go, oh, oh. And
Oh,
here's the funny thing. It's like I literally just moved. My body is so used to turning one way to put the silverware away, and
yeah,
it's over here now. So it's so hysterically funny because I'm like going, oh, this is again another thing.
right.
My body's trained automatically to go this way, and I'm training it. So it's the same in our lives.
I remember I quit smoking cigarettes about 30, almost 30 years ago. And I would say I remember 5 years later getting in my car and going to reach for a cigarette because I did it for so many years.
Right.
Right. And I was like, what are you doing? Right.
Yeah.
But the nicotine's out of your system. It's the what do
Right.
I do with my
That's the
hands? And
it's
that
the
I,
body.
because everything is a habit. I would put my makeup on with my, having a cigarette next to me. I would, all the things that you did,
Yep.
that was a harder habit to break than
Yep.
the actual nicotine in your
Yep.
system. So
Yep.
yeah, I can.
Lollipops were my thing. I used to smoke
Oh, I loomed
30
pot
years ago.
holders. You know
Oh,
the little loom kits, looming?
oh yeah.
I would loom pot holders and my sisters were like, you make me one more pot holder, I'm gonna shove it up your
Oh
ass,
my God,
right?
that's
Like, yeah.
hysterical. Yeah.
Let's talk about vibration, right? So there are people who are going to understand exactly what that means, and then other people that, feels it's new agey or what. I hate that term, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
raising your vibration. Are you saying
Yeah.
I have like what does that
Sure.
mean?
Sure.
And
So
what's
we all know,
fundamental, what is vibration?
we know it, we feel it, we just don't use the terms. And I want to make one thing really clear. You can raise your vibration, you cannot raise your frequency. Okay. A lot of people will say you've got to raise your frequency. That is impossible because a frequency is a set, like it when you turn on a radio, right? It's at a set frequency. So everything, and here's another analogy, which you'll love. I use the analogy of the elevator. So let's say the penthouse is where all your dreams are. That's where they live, right? So you want to get there. And that's a frequency, right? A floor. Just imagine frequencies as floors. And your inner vibration is how you feel. So we know it when we're feeling angry, yucky, our body is tense. We feel it in our gut. That is a vibrational energy, right? And so when we feel joy, we feel expansive, we stand taller, we smile more, it feels good, we feel open and free. And that is vibration. So here's the thing about the floor, right? The elevator is when you get in the elevator, you want to go to the penthouse, but you're stuck in anger, fear, or shame. All of those
You're
emotions
going to
live.
the basement is what I
Yeah,
hear.
a lot of those emotions live on different floors.
Yeah.
So but here's the thing, there's no button in the elevator. It's your emotions that are going to get you to the floor. So as you're letting go of any fear, shame is the biggest. Shame, I think, is one of the biggest ones. Um, and guilt. As you experienced with me in school, I let go of a lot of guilt from childhood,
Yeah.
and with my children. Didn't even know I really had it.
Mm,
And so it's those vibrations, those feelings of ourselves, or about our lives, or about something we've done in our lives that keep us on the first, second, third, fourth floor and keep us from getting to the penthouse. But once you love that part of you, like I had to really love and realize, and not even love it, but forgive.
mm,
I had to forgive things in my past where I was just like, oh, and then parts of it, one of the biggest griefs wasn't even my fault.
right.
It wasn't even my fault.
And I think the thing about forgiveness isn't necessarily what you did is okay.
Mm-mm.
It's I no longer, what you did no longer has a hold on me. Because
Yeah.
forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you, right?
Yeah. Well, I had to
Yeah.
forgive that I chose the certain people.
Right.
There was a part of me that had to forgive that,
Yeah.
and realize that, oh, no, you know what? I did that for my soul growth. I
Yeah.
did that to have these two amazing kids and now almost four grandkids, right? So I think about that. It's just like, I can't, how can I look at that first marriage as just with shame and guilt and fear and all that stuff? I can't,
Right.
because then I would be carrying that energy and looking at my grandkids that way.
Right.
That's a huge thing.
That's
When you
beautiful.
let go of all of that, it's generational.
Yeah.
I've seen it play out with my kids. Yeah, that's
Well,
been
in
huge.
the generational stuff, we don't realize, like, sometimes it's not ours. I actually had a healing about a month or so ago, and I went to the woman. I said, I just feel stuck. I don't even know what it is. Like, if I knew what it was, I would get unstuck.
Right,
And she was in the healing. She's like, this is generational. I was like, well, then that explains why I couldn't figure out how to fix it because it wasn't
right,
even mine, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's literally when you're feeling those things, is feel them.
Yeah.
Definitely feel them. I'm all about the feels. You can't just bypass this stuff.
Right. Because it
I
comes out
do.
sideways. I feel like the bypassing, it's just going to come out bigger and bigger and bigger and
Well,
bigger.
yeah, because the universe is, but
Right.
I do believe that we don't have to, like for childhood trauma, we do not have to go back and dig all that stuff up. We do not. We can heal that in, I've done it in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just the energetic release and finding that forgiveness. And sometimes that's really hard. And a lot of times it's like, okay, you're not forgiving the person, but you're forgiving yourself,
Mm,
right? Forgiving yourself for putting yourself, or and not even putting yourself in the path. Because I mean, I was just a little kid. I didn't put myself in that path. I
right.
chose it from a different dimension. But it literally is real. And here's the other thing: is realizing that everybody has their shit. Are there evil people? I have a hard time with this one. I do think there are people who have, like, there's something wrong and it
Mm,
causes them to do evil deeds. And we know how to deal with them. But the people, everyday people, I just feel like a lot of this stuff, like with my abuser, it was fear. He was abused. It was
right.
a lot of fear and control and not having control over, he needed control. And so once I dug into a lot of that, that's when I really found a lot of forgiveness.
That's
And again,
beautiful. That you could.
I couldn't have done that if I didn't love me.
Right.
Right. So I had already done the work to love every part of me. And there are parts of me I want to change. Right. But I've taken steps to get toward that. Right.
And the
And
change,
process.
let's talk about that a little bit, right? Because the wanting to change, and you don't have to share as much or as little, right? Like, I wish my hair was longer. I wish my hair was curly. I wish it was shorter. I wish I lost weight. I wish I gained weight. I wish, right? So when you say there are parts of me I want to change,
Mhm.
is that
I'm gonna,
because you're again, you know what I mean? Like, share more about that.
yeah, because I don't wish the wishing, the wanting, the hoping, all of that is a lower vibrational
And
energy.
it's from a place of scarcity and lack,
Scarcity,
right? Yeah.
right? But not only that, there's all that guilt and shame attached to it.
Yeah.
Or like for my experience, in the last place I was at, it felt like I was in a cage. And I know one of my highest values is freedom. So it didn't align with my values where I was. So I needed to change that. And as soon as I did, holy cow, it's like, oh, freedom, right? And then there's expansive energy, and then I can be more, do more. So
Mm,
sometimes it's environmental, but that was a decision I made a long time ago, well, a couple of years ago, because of I was forced into making a decision quickly, right? And there was good parts about it.
sure.
But that's what I mean by wanting to change, or needing to change, or it wasn't, I knew for myself I wasn't in alignment.
Yeah.
So for
Okay.
me, it was like, oh, it's more like I just need to move into alignment versus I want or I need. I just
Okay.
need to move into alignment, energetic
Which is a
alignment.
lot different than,
It's
yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. I don't want for anything. I don't need anything. If anything, I need to give things away.
Yeah, you and I had a conversation the other day around need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that helped me tremendously because I
Oh,
think of needs as a place from lack and scarcity. And one of the things I'm working on right now is even recognizing what my needs are. So I
yeah.
was in this place of like, wait, right? And Deb shared with me, I think the question now is like, what will bring me joy today? Or what will make me happy today? Or what will fulfill
How
me?
can I take care of
How,
me?
right? How can I, which is such a different place of what do I need?
Yeah.
right? Because it
Yeah,
isn't about, because need is meaning there's lack of,
there's lack. Yeah.
right?
It's just shifting the language.
Yeah,
And also as women, we have been taught that we can't take care of ourselves first. And but that's a hard, or challenging, or it's a choice. It's a choice. No, I am going to take care of me. Uh,
right.
yeah.
Right. I want to go back to the, being a product of our thoughts and beliefs, right? So, um, I've had conversations with people on both sides of the aisle there, right? And free will. So where does that fall in for you? I always use did you ever see the movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow? Oh my gosh. It was from the 90s, right? I share this all the time with people. It was this movie where they showed the movie in parallel. And
Okay.
if she had done one thing one day, her life,
Cool.
this was the path. And if she had done something else, but at the end of the day, she ended up in the same place. It was just the path,
I
right?
don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Okay. All right. So
Because,
tell me more. So that to me, this is the free will, right? But like the contract is the end result, but the free will was how she chose to get there.
yeah, I think we can definitely veer off path.
Okay. At
And
100,
that's
I agree. Yeah,
and that's when you have
100%.
to come back. It's like, yeah, we agree to
And that's
this.
why we come back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime,
Well,
right?
yeah, because free will, that's what we've been given and we can choose. So it's like if you're here, like if this is you and you're making one little choice every day, you're going to end up way over here, right?
How do you think you know what your path is? So
Um,
yours got clear to you, right? Helping other women
is it ever
or
clear? Is it ever clear?
no, I mean,
No,
yeah.
as I evolve, it shifts and
Okay.
changes. I think our path is to follow our joy. What makes you
Mm,
happy? What makes you the happiest? What makes you shine? What makes you feel so alive? I think that's the biggest thing versus a particular path or a purpose, because the purpose changes.
yeah.
I mean, when I was younger, my purpose was to raise two amazing kids, and it was it's always been to help people see themselves. That's always been kind of and no matter what
What you
environment
did.
I was
Yeah.
in, didn't matter. But yeah, the purpose changes. I think our purpose, all of us, is to be of service to one another, to
I
help
love that.
humanity rise up. We're getting there. I think I wrote a community, compassion, community collaboration.
Yeah.
When we get there, and when we can all realize that we all have like the God consciousness, that is us. We are all it. And then when we can get rid of like they did this, they did that, when we can get rid of that and realize that it's all just is, then I think that's when you can start to really shift, especially us as a humanity,
Yeah.
shift up.
I
That's when,
love that when we can just own that it just is, right? There is no right or wrong. There is no good or
there's no
bad.
good or
It
bad.
just
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, it goes back to vibration,
Yeah.
all free will and humanness. And think about this too, is that throughout humanity, it's men or humans that have dictated, right? Well, I've been really looking at the ancient scriptures, and it's like, OMG, yes, this is how I've felt my whole life, right?
Mm,
But it's realizing that the God consciousness is within us, that, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole of religion and stuff, but
right.
before any of that even took place, and we were, just love. It's the energy of love, of taking care of one another. um and yeah, dealing through fear with love. My acronym for fear, feeling excited and ready.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I have not heard that one. I've heard
Oh, you
others.
haven't?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, fear and excitement. So when you're doing something, you're scared. So your body, kind of, it changes, it shifts, right? When you're excited about something, you also get, ooh, yikes. You know what I mean? It's the
Yeah.
same. feeling excited and ready. So push through that. And we both know that on the other side of fear is just like,
Yeah.
that's where joy and growth is.
And I've learned, there's a few blogs on my website about fear, and I believe fear is an illusion, right? Because
Yeah.
often what we think we are afraid of isn't the thing. And I learned that about, I don't know, I think it was 10 years ago. I
Oh, I know.
skydived. I don't know which is a dive past tense. But the gentleman said to me, so I was not doing it because I'm an adrenaline junkie. I won it at a silent auction, and it was part of my personal development journey. If I can jump out of a plane, I can do anything. And my husband and I were doing it. And he said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "We're afraid of heights." And he said, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Dude, don't tell me what I'm afraid of. I know what I'm right." Like I got all in my head. I don't think I said
Yeah.
it to him, but he said, "You're not afraid of heights. What you're afraid of is falling." And in that moment, it shifted so much for me because I was like, he's not wrong, right? I've been in a tall building. I've been in an airplane. I don't may not love it, but it isn't about the tall building. It's about the plummeting from the tall building. Right.
Right.
And that in that moment, I started just looking at fear so differently because the thing we're afraid of is it like I'm not necessarily afraid of a bear, but I'm afraid of a bear mowing me, right? Like, so you can say I'm afraid, right? Like I have this ridiculous fear of mice, right? Ridiculous fear. And um it's the unknown, right? Like where are
Right. The
they?
fear of the unknown.
Right. A chipmunk, I don't know if I even shared this with you. A chipmunk got into my house a week ago and
Oh my gosh.
it hasn't quite gotten out. And somebody said, "But you're not afraid of chipmunks." I'm like, "Yeah, when they're outside, but when they're in my house and I don't know where they are, I'm not a fan."
Ah, so you're afraid of things in the house.
But well, it's the unknown. Like they're small and they can run
Yeah.
right? Like
You can
crawl into
rent
bed with you and be like, I don't know where you are.
Right, right,
Right.
right. Yeah, it's always the fear of the unknown for
Right.
everything.
Right.
It's funny, I went in a hot air balloon to get over my fear of heights or
Yeah.
falling.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And again, it was a gift certificate. I went and then I did it again. And yeah, it's working. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I love that. I love that. So, as we start to wrap up, because I think we could talk forever, but what is something that you live by that you want to share with our listeners?
Love.
Mm,
But I don't think a lot of people even know what love is. We know it in the human form, like it's an attraction, it's this, it's that. No, there's this place of love that's nirvana. And
mm,
it is just, I try to stay there. I try to get there. I try to, even looking over here, I love that. I love that. I'm so glad I have that. You know what I mean? Um, but it's with humans, with humans, it's just embracing. I try to embrace even when I have difficulty with people, embracing, okay, what is going on inside of them? That's what unconditional love is. And it's been, I've had to really learn this in my life. Hasn't been easy, hasn't been easy, because all of my stuff will come up and I'm like, nope, nope, nope. Um, yeah, so I try to live by seeing people for who they are
nice.
and where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Because even somebody in the grocery store, you go to the grocery store and they're not treating you well. It's like, okay, what happened in their day?
Right.
What I used to, when I used to run restaurants, I used to train my staff because sometimes we'd get somebody come in and they were just angry and mean and just nasty. And at the end of the day, I'd say, okay, let's try to turn this customer around.
Right.
We don't know what he just learned in the car. What if he just learned that, he got fired? What if he just learned that his partner has cancer? We don't know. And
Right.
then he came in and it unleashed on us. What if we just treat him with well, he turned out to be that one in particular turned out to be one of my best customers. And we'd hug and he'd say, I don't know what you've done to your staff, but I come in here and I always feel good.
I love that.
So that was huge. That was a huge lesson for me and for all those kids.
Yeah, because we don't know what anyone else is going through, right? You were the smiley mom dropping kids off at school and falling apart the minute they got out of your car,
Yeah.
right? We don't know because what we show to others is really what others see. And there's so
Yeah,
many other layers.
without a doubt. And we're always looking through our perspective, through our story.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's just like, and that's where the judgment comes in, right? So if you're judging someone, you have to look inside and go, where was I behaving like that?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just recently shared a story of a woman that I met many years ago at a women's leadership event. And she was one of those people that was like over there. We didn't have a lot of interaction, but there was a group of us having dinner. And her and I was sitting next to each other, but it was more back to back.
Mhm.
And I witnessed her interaction with the waitress. And I was like, she's kind of a bitch, right? And because if her meal didn't come out right, and she was the waitress said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like something else?" And she was like, "No, I'm fine." And
Mhm.
that's something my mother would have done, right? Played the martyr. No, no, I'll starve,
Right.
right?
All right.
So I was just kind of like, whatever, this is not my person. And then the next night, a smaller group of us were out to dinner, and she looked at me and she went, "What is all this with you?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" She's like, "You're a coach, you're a healer, you're a manager, you're a hairdresser, you're all these things. What is all that?" And I was like a little taken aback. And I was like, "Well, you weren't really nice last night, but what it is we were both seeing something. We are so similar, and what we were seeing was the mirror." I mean, it was such a beautiful thing. I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, you were really mean to that waitress last night." She's like, "Oh no, you didn't see the whole thing." And then she explained there was so much more than what little piece I
Right.
saw. And I made a judgment based on the, 3-minute interaction
Right.
and not the whole thing. And we still laugh, we don't see each other that often, but we still laugh about it and be like, "Oh my God, we were such mirrors for each other."
Yes. Yes.
And at the same time, it was what we needed to learn in that moment.
Mhm.
So
Yep. Yeah, it's
oh my gosh.
incredible.
Deb, this has been so much fun to chat with you. I pull cards every podcast, and I have a left, a center, and a right. So I'm gonna invite you to choose your card first. So left, center, or right.
This hand.
This hand?
Yes.
Left. All right.
That's the one that said, go do that one.
Oh, beautiful. Planting seeds. Seeds of grace are being planted in the fertile soil of my soul.
Wow. How appropriate.
Right?
How appropriate.
I love that. All right, so that's for anyone who chose left. And if you chose right, and I love how these, I didn't, sometimes I look at them. The last few times I've had my husband pull the deck. So he pulled the deck, and sometimes they're just all in alignment with the
Yeah.
conversation. Expecting miracles. Miracles are blossoming in my life,
Love it.
right? And that's center. And then right, starting fresh, a wonderful new beginning is blossoming in my life.
Oh, there you
Love
go.
that we're doing a lot of blossoming and planting
Right.
of the soul and the so beautiful. So
Yeah.
Deb, tell people, I know you have an offer that you want to make to the people listening. Tell them how they can find you and what your offer is. And we'll put it all in the show notes so they can find
Sure,
it.
sure. 50 ways to raise your vibe. So it's literally, when you're, and it's just things to have on hand to know, oh, this is going to raise my vibration, right? And it's a simple thing sometimes. Well, here's the thing. In order for you to create the reality you want, you have to take action. So if you're spiraling or you're having negative thoughts or you just want to feel better, you have to take action, right? So these little vibration raising activities, they're all simple how to do, what you can do right now to get you out of that negative spiral. The negative spiral is it literally pulls us all out. So 50 ways to raise your vibe. I've done them all. There's research behind it all, which will be in blog posts and so forth.
Nice. And if
Um,
people want to work with you, they can just go to your website.
they can reach out to me at coachdeborahknight@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. Thank you so much for being here. This has
Thank
been
you.
such a fun conversation. And I want to thank all of our listeners for being here. I'm Francine Tirrell, owner of Forever Change Coaching and FN Fridays with Francine podcast. I am a spiritual mindset coach and energy healer, helping women make big ass up levels in your life. So if you're looking to make a big ass up level, then we need to talk. And all of my information will also be in the show notes. You can join my Facebook group and go to my website and schedule a call with me if that speaks to you. Thank you for being here.